Hi everyone, welcome to Splitting Hairs. Hi Annabelle.
Hi, how are you?
How's lockdown treating you?
Um,
Okay, next question.
Next
So this
question.
this episode today, we're going to call it "Should Only Talented People Get a Music Education?" Now, it's not exactly our idea. I had a really impassioned, upset email from a friend of mine I went to high school with, and her daughter basically isn't getting a go. And she's at a state school and she applied for the music program and she didn't get in, which led to like just a really upset kind of message that she sent to me. And I really felt her pain. And so I sent the message to Annabelle and we're like, look, we have to do an episode. And so the message was long and we've deconstructed the message to respond to every point, every question that she had. But the final sentence in her message was, do you think only bright, self-motivated kids should play the violin? Should public education be about equitable access and opportunity? So she rounded off her message beautifully. So that's what we're going to talk about today.
So obviously that last question of should kids get the education, of course we don't think that because it should be for everybody. But the point she made in this message to you is what we're going to unfold.
Yes, and as usual here at the Splitting Hairs studio, Annabelle and I will show you all sorts of shades of grey and never come to a definitive answer. So I'm sorry if that bothers anyone. We're definitely, the older we both get, the less opinionated we are, realising there's just,
Me, look, me a
okay,
year
me,
ago,
all
me
right.
2 years ago, like it was bad because I was just like, what? No, this, and then the more I'm like, yeah, do what you want.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Or these are all different people who do all different things. So today we're going to break down this question that we've, squished into the idea: should only the best kids basically get an
Get a go.
education, a music education? So we can easily discuss this because both Annabelle and I have had similar and yet different backgrounds. And my friend herself, she had a very good music education. She was incredible. So anyway, we can cover all that. So she starts off, obviously, we're not mentioning any names here. Like, we just can't because, anyway, obvious
The
reasons.
names besides the point. It's the experience that your friend's gone through that other people might be going through that we can comment on.
Yeah. Yeah. And so the first thing she talks about is her daughter is, she describes her as a quirky little person and has become highly anxious. Now, every parent out there who's experienced a global pandemic knows the effects that this has on kids. Now, she's in Queensland, this person, so she hasn't had as many lockdowns as us. But, there's definitely an atmosphere of anxiety in the air, which children definitely absorb. So, my question to you, Annabelle, is do you think that an anxious, quirky little person could benefit from music lessons, or will it make it worse? Who knows? Let's think about that.
Yeah. Well, I'm biased because when it comes to music, I think everybody should have a go at it. Whether that means you picked up an instrument through school for a term and went cool and no, and you go on to do something else. I just think the opportunity for all kids to have a go, to have the opportunity to pick up an instrument, is impactful. So yes, and I think if maybe you have a child that has a particular type of personality, maybe music is the best outlet for that child. So yes, and
Yeah.
certainly if you have a kid that's interested in something, you'd like to hear that the parents and people around them are going to try and nourish that. I remember when I was younger, I wanted to do acrobatics, dancing, 10 different instruments, soccer, cricket. I did all of that, and my parents made it possible. None of those things lasted long, except for violin. I whittled it down to the one, but my parents, especially my dad, made a way for that to be possible, and that's how I've had all those opportunities. So yes, if you've got a kid that's interested, do it, do
Now,
it.
this kid is interested. This kid wanted to do it and applied. So I gathered from the message that it's a state school and there's an opportunity for her to do it. She applied. She was rejected. Obviously, there's funding issues. Only a certain number of kids get into it. But I think from a general point of view, this person's question is, why should only the good kids who are already going to do well, why should they get a go? Is this chance going to benefit the kids who aren't good at it yet? Is it going to give them a better chance of improving their personality or integrating themselves into society better?
Look, that's heavily nuanced, and I would. My experience of education's always been there's been breakdowns of maybe the kids that are excelling in a certain thing, so they go into the excelled courses of that. Like I remember at French, there was the better people that were at French, and then everybody else just had to do it. Music, it was the same. So should education facilities or whatever take in only the best? No, I'd like to think that maybe if there was maybe the accelerated music courses and then, entry for everybody else, that gives everybody a go. And if you're doing really well, you don't want to feel like, I hate to say it, but that you're held back because of other people. And then if you're one of the other people, you don't want to feel like, oh, they're way more advanced than me. And then you sort of compare yourself and tuck yourself away a bit and feel you're not good enough.
Yeah.
So I do think that could be something.
There's another side to that too. There's that buddy system idea where you can pair up the best kids with the least experienced, worst kids, and then that lower level automatically comes up, and that upper level is forced to turn downwards and help. And I believe in that really strongly, but I don't believe that the top orchestra, say, of Queensland Youth Orchestra, let's say, I don't believe the top orchestra should have the responsibility of the junior string ensemble. There's like two orchestras in between the top orchestra and the bottom.
Yeah.
But parents have to pay fees to these organisations. So I think one of the main points we're probably going to get to is if you want a music education for your kid and you go to a state school, you might have to get private lessons. You might have to just find the money to do it, because if your school's not offering it, especially at the lower level or beginner level or difficult child level, then you have to find that from somewhere else. But anyway, that was just point one. That was just point one. we got 2 pages here, so I'm going to move on. Okay, so we discuss whether a state music school experience will benefit a child like hers. So she's already stated her child is perhaps not great in groups. So maybe there's another argument for more one-on-one music education for her, which is private, which will cost money. So now another thing I'd like to touch on is I have noticed as I age, the teaching of music generally gets weird. It's almost like teachers don't know how to teach kids who can't do anything. So who's teaching at the lower level? Like, what's happening at the lower level? So you look like you've got something to say about that. So let's, from the point of view of this child, let's just say she's not the star A-list child. She's got some problems. She's got some anxiety. She wants to do music, but she's quite awkward and whatever. Where are the teachers who pride themselves on that? So you go.
I have taught violin. I intend to go back to it at some point. And I know I've seen across my peers and my teachers the different types of teaching, the different styles of teaching. I know people that have absolutely thrived on teaching baby beginners. The 4-year-olds, the 5-year-olds, the can't hold a bow properly, they thrive on it. They've got the personality for it. There is such enjoyment there that the kids can't help but radiate that. I know them. I was taught by them when I was that age, even though I hated violin at the time. Like, oh yeah. Anyway, and then I've been to uni and I've seen those people, one person I'm thinking in particular didn't want to do honours, didn't want to do Masters of Performance. She discovered the teaching course, loved it, going off and teaching in schools, absolutely thriving. Find a teacher like that. Find a teacher like that. You might think you want your child to, I don't know, be the best, so you think that type of teacher that's teaching at university or wherever, maybe they'll get to that teacher one day. But for those beginners that maybe they have awkward personalities, I've taught kids like that. I was a kid like that. You've got to find the teacher that will absolutely create that joy of music in that child, because then they'll respond to that. Practicing will be fun for them. It's devastating for me as someone who loves violin to see a student there because their parents want them to be there,
Yeah.
but they cannot stand it or they don't get it or something. And it's just like, I'm trying to help, but they've got to give back too. So you've
But
got to
that's
make it
not this child. That's not this child. This child
yeah.
wants to learn.
So
So
if she wants to
yeah,
learn and maybe she's like new in dealing with, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know this
anything. I
person.
know.
Anything.
Yeah.
But my thing is find that teacher that because they're out there. Whether they're maybe they're a uni student and they're getting their first go at teaching, but they can teach babies or something.
Yeah,
I don't
yeah,
know.
absolutely. You're so right. And
Find
sometimes
them.
that takes more than one go.
Yeah.
Maybe that takes a few trial lessons with a few
Yeah.
people.
Yeah. Because once
Yeah.
once that relationship's there between the teacher and the student,
Yeah.
like magic can happen.
Magic
Really.
can happen. That's right. And this child, it sounds like people are taking her at a superficial level, like, oh, difficult child, don't want her in my class, she's going to be trouble. But those students have the greatest personalities underneath them, just buried underneath them, just desperate to get out, and they already know that they're not normal, and they already know that they don't identify with other normal people. And what tends to happen is teachers are afraid of these kids. They're afraid. So and because children are animals, they sense the fear of the teacher and they become even worse. So my method with this sort of, let's say, low level or beginner level is absolute old school authority. Absolutely no wiggle room, no grey area. We're going to do that way until it's done. And I know I've said this kind of speech on this channel before, but the old school is been let go too much because the old school can bring everyone up to a basic level. You don't have to be talented to respond well to the old school. It's just rote learning, repetition, and not even an understanding. So I think this kid needs to be believed in. And the only way to do that is to genuinely have a belief that every single person can reach a mediocre level,
Yeah, and from that, so it sounds like at the start it is downward. So from the teacher, discipline, but also joy, whatever. And then once it clicks with that student that music, yes, they will shoot
Then
up.
they will start
That's
to do it. Yeah.
That happened to me. It was all downward because I was like, I don't want to go to my lesson, cutting my nails, whatever, on the way to my lesson, by the way. Like, I'm just hating everything. And then it clicked for me, and it was, I want to play every quote to study. Don't do that. But that's what I wanted, and I wanted to do all the bark. Also, don't do that because.
But you know what? Playing every Kreutzer study is a very old school thing to do. This is what our goals were in the old days. It's like, I want to make it through the whole of the entire Kreutzer study book. That's not daggy. That's what we all used to do. And now we're sort of, oh, don't do that. What a nerd. It's like, we all did that, and that's why we got a lot of notes under our fingers because we just did it and we didn't have to reach the absolute top level of it. We just gave it a red hot go on our own, But so let's get back to this person. What's the next thing? Old school, blah, blah, blah. Right. So, okay. So, go on. You want to say something while I'm reading this?
Which I can cut the in between thinking bit.
Okay, great. So the next thing she says, my friend, her daughter is musical and keen, and so she applied to be part of this program. They do oral tests and look at academic results and recommendations from classroom teachers. So this is a really important point. This kid, after reading this message over and over and over again, I'm really close to feeling very strongly that this kid mightn't have got in because she is perceived to be a little bit difficult. Okay, so you've got academic results. What that has to do with learning the violin is beyond me. But it's a case of if they have to pick only a limited number of people, they do have to test widely to pick.
Yes, I think, again, nuance. It sounds like this girl's really quite young.
She's in primary school.
Okay, so at primary school, this kind of, ticks you need to get, for me, is a bit much, although I don't know about this school. So for me, bit much. But when you get to university or, higher education, you can play violin to the best, like the best. You don't have the grades, the university will say no. But that's university. There are, you hear it in America, they're on the football team. But if they don't have that average of a B or whatever,
Yep.
they can't play. They might be
Yep.
sponsored or scholarship or
Yep.
whatever for sport, but you've got to keep your grades up. It's
Yep.
not one or the other.
But let's just go to the lower level. We're talking about entry level here. We're talking
I
about
know,
someone
that's
who's never picked up a
I'm
violin.
a bit disturbed by the
Yeah,
fact that it's primary.
agreed.
So yes, there's merit there to you have to be well-rounded. To get into university, you have to have theory. You need to know how to identify a major triad. But again, primary school, so it's weird for me. I don't know this.
Yeah, so I didn't like that idea that the way they were testing for kids to get into a limited number of spots was academically, and oral training, oral tests. I can teach my butcher how to like practice his oral skills. Anyone can learn that, but if you've never done it, how can you be tested on it successfully?
Yeah.
So
And we don't know those details, but there's
No,
just
we
things to
don't.
think about. Think about. That's
But the
bizarre.
scariest thing is recommendations from classroom teachers. So, for example, if her classroom teachers felt, on the one hand, oh, this child is really weird, she'd be great in a music program, or on the other hand, they're like, oh, that kid's a bit weird. We don't want to inflict her on a classroom music on a music program. So you don't know what the teachers were thinking when they were asked, would this child be suitable for?
Look, this is a bit of a tangent, but it reminds me of university where if you didn't get a particular grade in your first ever tech exam, you couldn't go do chamber music. There's a baseline of truth in that. You need to know how to play. But if you're only focusing here, you miss out over here. What if you did this? The impact it could have over here on
Yeah,
your tech.
yeah.
It's the same thing. If she's struggling in maths or associating like having friends in a particular class, but she's going and doing music, that will impact over here.
Yeah, exactly. And that's how we feel, and that's how her mum feels. I'm
And I
sure
really
of
feel
it.
strongly about that.
Yeah,
I really feel
absolutely.
strongly about that.
I mean, there's studies, you can read millions of studies about what music education does for your brain and connections and all that kind of hoo-ha. I don't actually care about that. I just know what it does socially for kids. I know what it does. I know what you do on Saturday morning instead of being hungover. You go to QYO and play a Mahler symphony. I mean, who wants to miss out on that? And you start at junior strings and you go up and up and up. So I'll say it again. If my friend wants her kid to have opportunities, maybe she's just going to have to pay for them, because the state obviously doesn't have enough money or support from government to make it possible for every child. And I'm surprised because in Queensland, they go on about, oh, what a great music, situation they have in that state compared to Victoria or other states. And yet, here's my friend going, why doesn't my child get a go at the violin,
Yeah.
So, whinge. Yeah.
Next point.
Okay. Oh, so this program, heartbreakingly, the child told her that she's not capable of learning. So the child herself
She's not.
is now going, oh, well, I'm just crap. Which of course it's not true. Like, so her friend says,
Sarah's phone.
okay, you happy to cut? I just messed it up.
Yes.
I'm so sorry. I was so annoying for you. Right.
Next point.
Next point. Heartbreakingly, she told me she's not capable of learning, so she's not good enough. And this is, of course, untrue. So that was a quote from the mum saying the kid now is like, I'm not capable of it. So anyway, this is not the kid's responsibility to learn. It's the teachers around her is responsibility to help her to learn. The idea that kids can teach themselves anything is a new age, politically correct load of garbage. Can someone out there argue with me? Please contact me and tell me that a kid can be responsible for their own education. Sorry, not possible. All
Can I
right.
fight you on that? Just a little fight.
Yeah, all
Just
right.
a little
Go on,
fight.
go
Okay.
on, go on.
Only thing.
Go on.
This girl is primary, so it's not the same comparison. But I was at a rural school for my middle-aged,
You'll get there.
my middle school years. For a school that had a great music program. And going to that school, like that's when it clicked for me. One of my very best friends at the time was a saxophonist and was killing it at school. But she went, this school's only going to give me so much. Mum, Dad, I'm auditioning for VCAS. She went out there on her own. She was a teenager, so not 7 or 6. And she got in, blitzed her way through VCAS and went on to Mount Gambier and doing other
She
things.
sounds like one of those students who would have got into this program, no worries.
Yes, but
right?
my only little point I'm making is that at some point, she was a teenager, so it's not exactly the same comparison. But she went, this school is not going to do what I want. I want more. I want more. What's the opportunity that she discovered, got into, was VCAS,
Yeah.
which is the VCA secondary school in
She
Victoria.
sounds incredibly confident as well. Like that's
Yeah.
also
Oh,
a
yeah,
rare
yeah,
thing.
yeah.
She's incredibly confident enough to go, no, this is what I want with my life, and I'm going to do it. I don't think this kid, grade 3 or whatever she is,
That was my only little pushback, but it wasn't even a pushback.
it's
It
not
was just
even,
a.
it's just a different scenario. But okay, so it's the teacher's responsibility to teach her things. Somebody argue with me, I dare you. And the equality of opportunity through great teaching isn't there anymore. Okay, so Queensland Youth Orchestra, even though it's paid, I know there are fees, but there are fees for all the youth orchestra systems. But the lowest level orchestra is usually a junior string ensemble, right? And I was
Yeah.
in that when I was 8. And I think I'd only been learning the violin for 6 months or something. Okay, I'm not a good example, but I think the daughter of someone who is extremely fantastic musician, my friend, she picked up the oboe, she picked up the viola. She was an amazingly beautiful singer. We had a 4-part vocal quartet in high school, which we just kind of made up. We had a
That's
German
awesome.
exchange student on the bass line and a South African girl on the top line, soprano. I was second soprano, and my friend was alto, and we just did all this stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
that's
So you
different.
just did it. You
Yeah,
just
but
did it as
we
well.
were confident and had every opportunity given to
Yeah.
us.
But that's what we say. Like the opportunity, if you're not getting it from the school or a teacher, find that teacher, make those opportunities. Because it's there. You just said that the mum of this girl is musical.
Yep.
She go and play duets with the daughter.
Yeah,
Like,
I
oh
wouldn't be
my God.
surprised if this girl could teach her own daughter. Honestly, she's that
Yeah.
brilliant. She was the
Yeah.
sort of person where I couldn't believe I was in the same group with her. She's gonna laugh when she watches it, but it's like I was the least intellectual. I was more like drifting towards the Italians and Greeks sort of group, and she was in the intellectual group, and I was a group hopper. But yeah, this
Ooh.
group was special because of her mainly. I mean, we all saw. I just want to tell one story. We all went to see Pretty Woman, that awful movie, which I see how awful it is now, but back then everyone was just in love with it, and we all walked out of the cinema, and she was just disgusted because she just thought that was the worst movie ever made, and she basically gave a full critique of it as we're all walking back to my house, and we were all kind of like, oh, are we stupid that we didn't see how bad that movie was? She was awesome. She was very, very inspiring intellectually. Okay, so next thing she says, I have become that parent. The letter we received said that she was on the waiting list, and every child that's not selected is told they're on the waiting list. So when school started and a friend of hers was offered a place, so it must have been after the deadline, her friend, another child, was offered a place. So my friend sent an email to the school stating how her daughter was still really, really keen to learn a stringed instrument. And then, she got the usual formulaic response about numbers and funding and all of that. Fine. We know there's a number limit. The point is, why not choose a kid that needs it more? Okay, it's debatable, I know. But I wanted to know from her what made them choose this friend over her daughter. What was it about that girl? I mean, she's never going to give me an unbiased opinion, so I didn't even ask her. Okay, I didn't want her to put herself
I
in a
know, but that could
situation.
have been anywhere from
Yeah,
that child is seemingly gonna do better
yeah,
than this girl, or it was just alphabetical. It could just have been first,
ordered waiting list or something. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
and pondering on that will drive you mad.
yeah. And I didn't. That's why I didn't really want
Yeah,
to
yeah,
ask her that, because it does put you in a position of becoming paranoid. And I mean, you're already upset that your kid hasn't got into something that they'll be good if they're just given a chance. I know that feeling. So then she sent another email. Haha, good on her. Keep sending me emails, I say, asking for a more detailed response to the specific questions she'd asked. And then she got a lengthy email back from the string specialist. Okay, this is interesting. This outlined how difficult it is to offer places once they've all started learning, And even if she's learning privately, she'd have to audition for the ensembles and might not get in because the balance of the ensembles wouldn't be right. Okay, so that just means there's all these technical issues as to why she can't get in. Fair enough. Fair enough. Annoying, but fair. They're organisations. They have to organise these children. But at the same time, what are they doing? Are they just assembling all the good kids and saying, hey, look what we've done? Or do they have a mission to gather up all those kids that are going to be left behind? Put all those kids in a different group.
Exactly. That goes to what I was thinking this whole time of,
Yeah.
again, if you can, school funding, blah, 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 we know that. But as an option, okay, this is the main program. Queensland Symphony Youth Orchestra, the main one.
Yep.
Okay, you have to get into that.
Yep.
But if there's all these other kids, Melbourne University, they have the symphony orchestra, then they have the Philharmonic Orchestra,
Yep.
which is a training orchestra. Another program.
Yep.
You know, like I see that, you know. But
And it does need funding. It does need support from government. We get that.
it
That's
needs
great.
teachers, it needs all we know there's so much more than just saying put another orchestra together. It's
Yeah.
not that simple,
Yeah.
but it's there. But if this
Yep.
school doesn't have it, if it's only the one
Yep.
and you have to audition to get in,
Yep.
rather
And you
than
don't get in.
rather than hang around and wait on that waiting list,
Yep.
go and play, go find another group. You know, if you know the standards to get in,
Yep.
practice in the meantime, and
Yeah.
then and try
Yeah.
again, and then don't try again. That's the thing. Don't just think, oh no, I didn't get it. the
Yeah,
first
try
time.
again.
You know?
Don't let it demean your already damaged self-esteem about the topic. Just keep trying,
And
trying,
this happens with auditions.
Yeah,
is,
absolutely.
what I've been told so many times is, okay, you didn't get it that first time. The next time you go and do it, you will already be playing better because
Yeah.
you've already done it once.
Yep,
And
absolutely.
you have to think like that, because every time
Yeah.
I've done an audition into a university, a course or whatever, I've seen the process done before.
Yeah.
You do it again. You
Yeah.
keep going.
You're hardened as well a little bit. It's less important too. The more of them you do, you just kind of, oh, here's another goddamn audition. All right, so okay, so they gave her a really detailed explanation. Excellent. Then she says, I quote, "I still didn't go away. I sent another email stating how disappointed we were that so and so would not have the opportunity. Realistically, I knew the answer was still no, but an empathetic response would have been nice. What I received was another formulaic email stating positions had closed for the year and numbers were determined by Education Queensland, blah, 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 go away, annoying parent." Right. And then, I don't know if she'd want me to read this out, but she said, they're primary school ensembles, not the London Phil. Yeah, definitely take your point. Here. But so as we discovered before in a few paragraphs before, it would be an organisational nightmare to cut off the dates and then keep accepting other kids. So technically, and from an organisational point of view, you know, my mum used to put on house concerts. Maybe my friend can do something like that. I'm sure she's got a little keyboard. You know, like invite a few friends over. I don't know, think about something. In the 80s, we used to be proactive. If we wanted something done, we'd do it. My friend Susie G, shout out to Susie G, she once wanted to put on a concert at the Art Gallery where we all dressed up in 18th century costume and played early music. And it was like she got an opera singer to come and moved the harpsichord in, and it was just like amazing. And no one got paid for anything, but we just did it because we wanted to do it. And
Yes, that's something that bugs me about some of my peers. Is the lack of being productive like that. Is just opportunities. Sometimes they come to you, and I've had one recently with employment that's appeared itself to me, but I was already working on things, and then it was the right fit. So sometimes those opportunities do present themselves to you in your hand, but very rarely.
Very rarely.
And if you really want to make something, you have to go and do it. You with your commissions, and then eventually the instrument presented itself to you.
Yeah.
You know, and you already had stuff there.
Yep.
So
it's like
please,
follow
you
your
know.
dreams. It's that cheesy phrase, follow your
Yeah.
dreams, but you have to be in a state of mind to dream. And it's very difficult when you're in a stressed out parental mindset, which I know my friend's in. I totally feel her pain. It's you want the best for your kid, and you want what you had as a kid, and you know you had it better than your kid does now. And again, I dare anyone to tell me that who's had a fun 80s childhood can say that the kids now are having the same thing. They're on their screens the whole time. And I'm not even
Yeah.
against video games or the internet. I'm not against it. But that's all they have now. And their brains have just completely gone to
I
sleep.
know. I wasn't.
You're
I'm
on the
not.
tail end.
I honestly think I was the last generation before because screens. I was around with phones that had cords.
Yep.
The internet was created at the time that I was growing up. You
Yep.
know, I remember getting my very first DVD.
Yeah.
Like,
Yep.
okay, but I lived next door to a park. I was outside all the time.
Yep.
You know, there was a lot of programs at my schools that I went to for me to be a part of. But my parents were also like, okay, that also outside of school. So I was very, very fortunate that I had parents and I didn't come from a wealthy childhood, but my parents made it happen.
Yep.
And that's, as you know, that's
Yes.
what I think. Just if the opportunity is not there, you've got to
Create it.
create it.
Yep. Yep.
I-
Agreed.
I-
I agree
would
with you so
tattoo
much.
that,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, I agree with you so much. And even if it costs money. So the idea now is if you if you haven't got money, the state really should be taking over at some point. But, you know, maybe you can afford whatever it costs for half an hour of violin lesson a week or a fortnight, you know. Maybe you can just go on with the beginner books by yourself with the parents' help. I mean, I think there's a better way to do this than wait for the state. The state hasn't been on its best behaviour for the last 20 years in terms of education, music education especially.
I think Queensland Youth, from the stories I've heard from you, is a really great example. Like, there was no Queensland Youth before your dad started it.
So the Australian Youth Orchestra organisation and Queensland Youth Orchestra kind of started around the same time. And I don't want to be competitive, but I think AYO camp started first and then QIO and then AYO. So they were kind of in tandem, let's put it that way. And all the other orchestras kind of followed because it was just a damn fine idea. I mean, the more the merrier. So there's no reason
But
even
then
to
it
be...
grew and grew. But your dad,
Yeah.
it just took the opportunity of Saturdays. People wanted to play, and then just grew into what it is now, which is multiple orchestras.
Yeah. And wind
Generations.
bands and stage bands and all of
Yeah.
that. And Melbourne's like that too. And I'm not 100% sure how many of the other states have multiple orchestras, but I think it's very similar. And that, even though there's fees, and the different states have different fees too, because the different organisations look at it either more towards the money earning end or the egalitarian, everyone should get a go, the fees have to really keep down. And you can imagine what Dad's was. It was the very try and keep the fees down as much as possible. So you can find the money. I remember the poorest kids that I knew, they were selling chocolate drives for the international tours, busking. I just don't feel that that's happening anymore. That attitude that students have to be proactive, but that's not what we're not talking about. A grade 3 kid, that child is born into a totally different environment and needs an opportunity that's not presenting itself right now. So,
Yeah. But it could be, okay, maybe not Queensland Youth, but for this girl, it could be as little as if the mum can play an instrument, if the mum can read music, go and get those beginner books.
The
They're
mum can
so
definitely.
easy to do that. Like,
Yep.
honestly, a couple nights a week or something.
Yep.
And that's also great bonding time as well.
Yeah. Look, I'm sure she's thought about that too. I think this letter to me was a principled sort of thing. It was the principle of something rather than...
Yeah. We'll round it off with the principle.
Well, the principle of something is extremely important. The next thing, there's so much research about the benefits of music education on the brain, self-regulation, mental health, etc. Now, I don't want to appear cold, but I'll say it again. I don't care about that stuff. Mental health, yes, but the mental health aspect comes from that you are integrating yourself in a social network that you might not have access to in school because you're a bit weird. So if you're all playing a violin, which is equally hard as at a beginner level for everybody, then the playing field is completely leveled. So you're all suffering for this awkward AF thing under your face, and then people it's funny, it sounds pretty bad at first, and you can have a bit of a laugh, and if the person conducting you or teaching you, the group teacher, whatever, can bring everyone together, then it doesn't take very long for you to understand how much fun that is for that kid. It's just
Yeah.
fun, you know? And
Yeah.
so,
And I mean, I've taught babies in groups and I've been one of them. When you see the teacher, like they just play something really impressive, the wide-eyed like look and they go, "Oh, that's so cute. And can you play like this? Can you play that? Like what's this
yeah,
vibrato,
yeah, yeah,
Like they're so innocent,
yeah, I know. It's
So
amazing.
again, it goes back to my opening point, which is find that teacher that will do that because
So when I was doing that, reminds me of when I was conducting. I actually did conduct, but I do that because I'm extremely mediocre. I was conducting State Music Camp Victoria, and there were some kids who no chance, no chance whatsoever. Okay, to do anything, but I didn't give up on them. I was like singling them out. I knew their names, so I could be like, "Hey, good job, Nicole. Let's have it. Woo, lift it up, yay!" And I didn't give up on any one single child in that group because the whole point of it was not to sound perfect. It was to get the lowest common denominator up the highest that they possibly could, and it was to basically ignore the good kids because the good kids were trouble. The good kids were always coming in too early, too loud, didn't do any dynamics, didn't count, rushing all the time because they could play, and that's very, very destructive in a low end group. So at the low end, without destroying the confidence of the best kids, it's best to just ignore them because they'll just plod along, they'll just do it because they can already do it.
Yeah.
But to single out these people who are struggling or they look like they don't care, this is the biggest mistake teachers make. These kids care. It's just a defense mechanism to like try and pretend that they're all tough and everything. So that's what I meant about teachers before. They're too not lazy. It's like it is a bit of laziness to just take a kid at face value and not assume there's like multiple layers of anxiety and trauma and fear underneath that attitude on the surface, you know? So, and when you learn their name and when you give 150% of your psyche to that child notices that you're doing it. I mean, they might be a bit embarrassed that you're singling them out the whole time, but
Yeah.
I
Oh,
think it really helps,
the scariest thing in the world is, okay, fine, we're gonna go desk by desk.
Oh, yeah.
Desk by. Oh my! I'm so traumatized by that. Desk by desk.
Yeah.
Come on, desk 6. Okay, I
Yep.
can't hear you.
Yep.
You need to practice that. Oh my god.
I know. I stopped doing that a long time ago. I stopped making people play by themselves or with their desk partner, but I would use their name, single them out and say, come on, lift up your scroll, whatever the name is.
Yeah.
You know, so I'd just make sure that every single child in that room knew that I was watching them, but in a nice way, in a friendly, caring way.
Yeah.
And when you do that, then you make a connection with that child. And then that child comes to life because then they're not being misunderstood repeatedly.
I remember doing Melbourne Youth Orchestra Summer School, and you were taking our tutorial, and this was like the very first time I hadn't even properly met you, and I was sitting in first, right, and we're doing Dvorak 9, right, as you do in your youth orchestra.
Great piece.
And it
Great
sounded
piece.
so bad. But I was just like, oh, this person's so like freaking out like a little nerd in whatever desk I was sitting in. And then you were like, yeah, like what's everyone listening to? Like Katy Perry. And I was like, she's so cool. Talking
Katy
about
Perry.
Katy Perry.
Such a tactic.
Like relatable. But you did that like
Yeah.
to bring it in everyone, and it worked because then, you know,
Yeah.
we're like, cool, okay, we can do this really hard, not really hard. Like,
Yeah, look,
sections, you know.
teachers do that, and it is a tactic, and it can sometimes come across as really inauthentic, especially when they bring bands in like Kiss or Queen or something like that. It's like, I don't think that's what kids are listening to now. That's what we imagine they're listening to because we're old, you know. So look, to bring it back to this gorgeous child, absolutely adorable child. She is just so special, and she's probably a real brainiac like her mum, and she's just going to absolutely find her tribe. She needs to find a tribe, and I think she's going to find it in music. But look, there's loads of kids like her, and those kids have more to gain from a state-run system than the already talented kids who are going to make it no matter what environment they're in. Those kids are fine.
So rounding it off to our opening question is,
Should
the only talented kids get the opportunities?
It's obviously no.
We said it was no.
Oh, it's no. It's no. Everyone should get a chance, even if they really suck. It's still funny. It's great fun. You bang on a drum, just as something to get your body and your mind and your environment connected.
Yeah. I mean, we could go into a part 2 about the talented people because we were talking.
Nah, I'm not interested in them.
Yeah,
Sorry. Nah, not interested in talent.
Can I make a point?
Yeah, sure.
Like when we were planning this one, we spoke about ANAM in Australia, of course, taking the best and universities propping
Well,
up.
they have to. Yeah.
There is a merit there, but not at primary school level, you know. So
They're not relatable. They're not relatable. The end we're talking about is the entry level. And our current chief conductor, our newly appointed chief conductor, Jaime Martin.
conduct drums, heard him conduct Beethoven. Oh my gosh, I'm so happy for MSO.
Yeah, you know what he said in a recent meeting? Let me just say that he quarantined for 2 weeks, and then Melbourne went into a lockdown.
Oh, poor.
So his commitment to us is extraordinary. And all we got to see him was through a Zoom meeting that went for an hour. And during this meeting, he said, if it wasn't for the state-run program in his town in Spain, he wouldn't have become a musician. He wanted to play the violin, but his parents couldn't afford it because the only violin teacher in his town was a private teacher. And his parents couldn't afford it. Then there was this little state-run thing where he had to go and play the flute. This guy ends up in the chamber orchestra of Europe. I mean,
He's one of the most in-demand conductors.
He is divine. And if he didn't get this chance, my point is, this kid might be not the next chief conductor of MSO, but one of the future. You know, you just don't know. And if this kid doesn't get a chance, then the years go by.
Which is why I'm such a big advocate for this equal opportunity when it comes to things like this. Because you whittle out people that are like, I'm here because my mum wants me to, I don't want to do it. Parents go, okay, take that kid, find what they want to do.
Yeah.
And then what you will end up with the kids that want to be there, that are really enjoying it, that are receptive to it, doesn't mean they'll go on to be professional musicians.
They don't have to go on. Yeah.
Like what it will round out their education, especially in this early age.
Yeah. And the tribes that you become a part of. Like, I never did National Music Camp as a kid, but apparently if you do camp as a kid, you make friends there for life. And the memories you have, and it's 2 weeks intensive music that's harder than you could possibly imagine that you would ever be able to play. And there you are at the end of 2 weeks playing it all together, all at an unbelievably high level.
I did state music camp years ago, but
music camp, yep.
We did Sanson 3.
Oh my gosh.
It's really hard. It's really hard.
Well, this year was only a string group because of lockdown.
Yeah, no, mine was the big anniversary year or something for the orchestra. And that's not an easy piece. I did NYO at one point. We did Elgar Variations. Like that's this proper repertoire.
Yeah.
And when you have those intense, we're going over this specific section and
over and over
again,
and here's the tools and here's the yep.
You have no choice but to be able to play it.
So to just bring it all back, the big question: who is music education for? And obviously, we think it's for everybody, but especially the ones who can't do it on their own. They can't even begin without help. You know, especially those kids.
It sounds like for your chief conductor, Jaime Martin, and you and things like that, opportunities were different a couple of decades ago.
Yeah, it has changed. Yep. Well, he's from Spain as well, different country, completely different.
But as far as finding teachers and groups to play with and schools and private education, all of that, there's an abundance of things out there.
I think so. Yeah. You mean it's arguably it's better than it was a long time ago because there's more things.
We've got different things to go up against, which is kids and screens and distraction. And
the competition is...
Yeah, there's other things that we're dealing with. But as far as finding stuff out there are groups to play with if you are a beginner or if you're looking for type of teachers. They're there. it's changed a lot.
Yeah, yeah.
Over the last,
Yeah. So you
few
trial a
decades.
few teachers, and if you sense within the first 5 minutes that teacher is no good for your child, that's it. It's a trial,
And
no
ask your
more.
child.
Yeah.
Ask your child.
Yeah.
They might be like,
Well, you'll be able to tell. I mean, you'll be
yeah,
able to tell within 5 minutes if that kid's going to do well with
yeah,
that person.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, opportunity for
Yep.
all the kids.
Yep.
If the
State's got to do a
opportunities,
bit better.
we
The
hope, yeah,
state
and then
governments.
if the
Yep.
opportunity's not there, the opportunity to create something is
Create an
absolutely
opportunity.
there because you know someone, or someone knows someone knows someone knows someone knows someone.
Yeah.
Someone can play violin and they'll teach you.
Yeah, yeah. So just don't be don't worry about this
And
school situation.
and the other point, don't give up on this opportunity, whatever this course was. Go for it again.
And keep going
Hopefully,
for it. Yeah.
yeah. You never know what's going to happen.
Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah.
don't give up on that. No.
Yeah. Okay, cool. That was great. I really sincerely hope my friend finds some joy after this and her daughter gets to just express her quirkiness to the world through music.
Music.
Yeah.
Hey,
And
we know some pretty quirky professional musicians that have taken their
Oh.
own quirkiness and just,
Yeah.
so the
That's
music
right.
world, that's where we live.
Yeah, cool. All right, great. Thanks, Annabelle. That was a good one.
Okay.
All right, bye.
Bye.